Howdy ho, good neighbors. What's going on? It's Phil Russert at Creatorcon Q&A again. We were on last night, but we are back and we have a return guest. He's actually top two with Kevin Eastman is my favorite guest to talk to because no matter what they've accomplished in the industry, he's just fun. He loves comics. He's a fan like us, and just talking with him, it feels like you're just sitting and hanging out with somebody with the same passion. So I'm really glad to have him on. We're just going to get right into it. So without further ado, Dan Didio.
Hey, Phil, thanks so much for having me back. This is great.
Yeah, no problem. Like I said, I enjoyed talking with you last time. It felt like I was talking to someone I know for a long time that enjoys comics, and I appreciate that, especially when you've been in like the really heart of the business side of it, and you've still maintained that childhood love for it. So I think that's an awesome thing.
Yeah, I mean, listen, a job's a job, and when you look at it. But when you think about what you're actually doing and what you're responsible for, it helps keep things in perspective. And I've been, I checked the calendar. I think I've been reading comics for over 50 years.
But you're only 27.
Yeah, I know. Go figure. It's the companies age you. When you work for a major corporation, it ages you faster.
Yeah, well, what's my excuse? I didn't work for either company. So I mean, you went from DC, boom, big publisher, to grinding it out in the indie scene, so to speak. Now, I mean, obviously you have a name and Frank Miller, but it's a whole different beast for you now. And I'm sure there's ups and downs. You've got the freedoms that you have as the independent publisher, and you're not catering to shareholders and people above you, but in a corporation. But there's a lot of struggle too. So can you tell us about this adventure that you're going on now and how it's different?
It's interesting. It may seem different, but I've actually gone through this once before. I was director of ABC Children's Saturday morning schedule, and then they closed our department down when the Disney folks came in, and I moved from being a big corporate network guy that I had about 20 years of corporate experience working for the network, and then moving into basically a startup animation company that was computer animation. At a time that computer animation was only Toy Story. There was nothing on TV, nothing else. So it was a big change for me, and you had to go out there and really hand sell what we're doing and convince people that our choice was the right choice. So it's a lot of that happened then is sort of repeating right now, because even while you're working with Frank and myself, and you have Frank's name recognition and all the pedigree that comes with it, the reality is when you're putting out 1 to 2 books a month or 1 to 2 books every other month, you get lost in the shuffle. People forget about you real quick. When you have a 700-page catalog and you have 2 pages in that 700 pages, regardless who names on it, it's still alphabetized, and you can get lost in the crowd.
See, that's a good point. It's still alphabetized.
So until he's Ank Miller, we're going to be in problems.
Well, he might have to change his name. But either way, it's doing well. And Ronin too. I mean, Philip Tan is one of my favorite artists, and it's just incredible what he's doing on that book, which is amazing. But Ancient Enemies to me, and I had messaged you and told you, I read that and I felt like a comic book again. And I don't know the best way to describe that, but it felt like reading comics again, like I knew.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that's intentional, by the way. I mean, only reason why is that for me, growing up on comics, Len Wein, Marv Wolfman, Steve Englehart, Steve Gerber, Jerry Conway, Roy Thomas, you have these names, and you can't help but read so much of the material and then just soak in that style of storytelling and the pacing and how a comic works. And ultimately, I might not be emulating what they did, but they have certainly made their impact on me over the years. And quite honestly, the whole purpose of doing books with Frank Miller Presents is doing books that I like or Frank likes, and hope that what we like is what other people like. That's the goal. So I'm doing a book that I'm enjoying immensely writing. It's a lot of work, but it's something extraordinarily rewarding when you see it together. And it's not just the story. It's I see Danilo's artwork. He's a great storyteller. He knows how to really bring an energy to the page. And then of course the other thing that's the unspoken hero is Alex Sinclair on colors. We went to a great deal of work to bring this really bright palette to the comics because I felt comics were getting muddy. I feel like that
Right.
a lot of people might be qualified to work a computer, but not qualified to do computer coloring.
Flats a lot, right? It looked like it
Yeah,
was flats, not colors. Yeah, I agree.
and ultimately, so Alex, when we first started, Alex said he had to relearn his '90s coloring style in order to work on stuff, which I
Yeah,
took as a weird compliment because I want these books to feel vibrant when you open it up. I don't want them to feel like it's
right.
just just every color that they had available they're putting on a page at the same time. So
Well, Alex is awesome though because he does covers for me, and he
oh, that's
fits
right,
me
that's right.
in. He fits me in despite that schedule he has with you guys. And granted, I'm not Frank Miller, I'm not Dan Didio, but he really honors his word. He's a prose pro,
Yeah.
and I love Alex. He's
Yeah, it's
great.
one of the top, if one of the tops, if not the top in the business. Always a pleasure to deal with them. So when you bring that package together, and and as you're developing, and and just like anything else, as you're developing your stories and writing, it evolves. What I broke down as a 6-issue arc to start is completely not completely different, but a lot has changed along the way. The core conceits of the characters are the same, the origins are the same, but the story around them is evolving, and I think that's fun because as I start to learn them better and feel more comfortable with them, I'm having a lot more fun with the storytelling. And like I said, it's weird because number 3 just came out. I'm just breaking down the dialogue on number 4 right now, and number 5 has already just gone to Danilo for thumbnails, and then ultimately starting on the art. So we're moving, and it's kind of interesting to see because I know where it's all going, and I keep on forgetting where I am in the story when it comes out. So I'm going to wind up talking about
Man,
issue
you're
5.
you're only on issue 3, and you already need the people to do the research and look back. Little yellow box.
I had to go. It's I love, like I was mentioned before to you, I love the non-linear storytelling. So I love jumping all around and filling in all the gaps. If you read the whole thing when it's complete, you'll get the full story of what's happened. You understand what happened from the moment of the crash until ultimately where the story comes to its conclusion and where everybody is at every time. And I think that's fun, but it's a jigsaw puzzle. You got to put it together. And
Yeah, but
I'm having
that
a
keeps you
blast.
interested as a reader.
Yeah.
You're not just force fed and spoon fed everything. You got to work a little.
Yeah, I mean, I'm waiting to have those good conversations with fans that have been reading it as they start to figure the story out and see all the pieces. And and the worst thing, one of my biggest problems is I'm impatient. Like I said, I'm sitting there going, the 3rd issue just came out, and I'm like, why aren't they seeing it? And I'm like, because they haven't seen issues 4 or 5 yet, have they? So it's that.
Now, with the writing, there's some people that say that the story tells itself. Do you think there's any truth to that in a way? Like obviously you conceive what you want to conceive, but then it just evolves on its own.
Oh, absolutely. I say creativity is flowing water. I always remember that crazy scene in Jurassic Park with where they're talking about the chaos theory and they put the water
Yeah.
out the hand and it's kind of that. It's story just rolls with it and it happens. And it's what's the most interesting thing you can do is when you're writing a story and you get to a corner and you look at what you wanted a character to say, and then you look at the character and you said, "There's no way they would talk like that at this particular moment." Then you have to really rethink it. Um, and that actually happened to me back when my mainframe days when we were working on Reboot. We did the 3rd season of Reboot, and we identified a character trait in one of the characters that forced us to rethink and rewrite the entire series because it felt more true to
Wow.
the new direction than what we originally had. So it was fascinating.
Now, do you take some personalities that you know of people or that you run into and inject and like do the nice little mixer blend and put them in a character?
Absolutely. Anybody who's a friend of mine usually winds up on the evil villain side. Um, I don't know why it just happens that way. I mean, all the female members of the greater good are named after my granddaughters. I don't know what else
Aw.
to say.
Well, that's because you're a
One of
guy.
them turns out to be a killer.
When guys are friends with guys, they bust their chops. They don't compliment them; they bust their
Yeah,
chops. So you
exactly.
got it right. Hey, John Kotsis. Hey, Rod. How's it going? As you know, we're talking with Dan Didio, who's doing awesome stuff right now with Frank Miller Presents. He's got his own book, Ancient Enemies. We're also going to discuss Hide or Seek, the Superpower Protection Program, which is coming April 11th. We're going to get into that. For you, those of you who have never met Dan, he's a fan like us, man, and it's a lot of fun. I love seeing you venture into this. Like I didn't get to pick up Enemies 3 today. I really wanted to, but I am going to get it tomorrow. I'm enjoying
Great.
the series greatly. Don't tell Frank I like it better
Yeah,
than Ronin.
trust me, we just wrapped up number 3. That just got finished. So I'm trying to now I got to climb the mountain of 4 for Ronin.
Well, that book is looking beautiful. It
Yeah, yeah.
really is. But I'm enjoying reading Ancient Enemies. I haven't looked at Pandora yet. What made you go with Emma for Pandora? And what who conceived the concept of Pandora?
Actually, Frank conceived the concept of Pandora, but in all honesty, he just like we talked before, he conceived it, had something very clear in his mind. Him and Emma sat down talking about various visual cues and classic literature and classic art that they wanted to work into the style. But once Emma took it on, she really made it her own to the point that even the character involved evolved into looking like herself, and the
Nice.
grandfather looks like Joe, which is we saw it immediately, and I think it's wonderful, and it's a great little young adult book with a strong science fiction aspect to it. And that was the point of Frank Miller Presents. We have this heavy action adventure science fiction manga style book. We have probably a traditional superhero book cut for today. And then we have on the other side a young adult, young girl book. And the goal is to create different flavors for different people. And that was going to be the continued plan for a line 2 going as we start to develop more and more series.
Are you really enjoying this free? I mean, look, you're doing everything, which is hard, but are you
Yeah,
enjoying that freedom?
honestly, it's exhausting. It's frustrating. It's depressing. It's exhilarating. It's a lot of work. I put myself on a rather aggressive convention trail, primarily because I want to go out there and hand sell books. Because quite honestly, getting into the market is tough these days, and we get a certain amount of books out there. Most retailers, if they bought it, they're happy they sell them out and they don't reorder.
Right.
So to get other readers on board, I decided we're going to go out and knock on doors, so to speak, if we have to. And ultimately, we're going into going to conventions, and and the conventions are eye opening as well. About where the market is, where the fan is, and we have a lot of things to overcome if we really want to be a strong and vibrant industry for the future. And I think that's a reality right now. And I think you got to see more people out there, not just pushing their own books, but pushing the whole sense of what comics are all about and getting people excited about it again. I'll speak rather frankly. I mean, what I hear from everybody is Marvel and DC are in a weak position, and when they're weak, the entire business is weak.
Right.
And it's you're definitely seeing some of that.
Trickle down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, really in the people today. I mean, when you get a lot of people thanking you for New 52, there's something must be really wrong. No, I'm kidding.
Gerald said, "Hey Phil, hey Dan, big fan of your work." I guess he's talking to you.
Okay.
Um,
Yes,
and
thank you.
Brady says you helped him a lot with the things that you've done, the books that you've written, etc.
Great.
Um, and John said he loves Frank Miller's publications. He picked up Ancient Enemies today, and he'd love to draw something for you. It would be an honor.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're out there looking, man. Who inspired me? Oh, Jesus. I'm inspired by everybody. You know what? It's fun. I'm going to say this honestly. I can't say I was inspired by one person, but definitely when you build a tool chest of skills, um, you're pulling from everybody. Probably my biggest influence, though, if you have to go to one, it was my older sister. I had an older sister. She was handicapped, but she never acted, behaved it, or anything. As a matter of fact, as a kid, I thought a wheelchair was a toy, because that's how we handled everything in our house.
Right.
And she would took me to my very first conventions in 1970. She introduced
Wow.
me to Forrest J. Ackerman when I was a kid,
That's cool.
and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So they filled that fantasy bucket for me when I was a kid, and it's never been empty since.
Well, I mean, I had a friend who just passed who is wheelchair bound, and you look at their struggles, but they smile every day and they
Oh
stay
yeah.
strong, and it makes you look at yourself and say, "What the hell am I complaining about?"
No,
I,
she
you
she
know.
she drove. She did everything. She was an activist for a bit. She was a costume She was a writer herself, an artist herself. A
Nice.
textile designer. I mean, it's just the list went on and on.
Well,
So
creativity's in the family, then I
yeah,
see.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If I only got a fraction of that, I'm ahead of the game. Yeah.
So you had touched upon being at shows, and you announced the talent search.
Yeah.
So tell us a little about that and what the
Yeah,
process is.
it's a two-pronged thing. I mean, the shame of it all is we only have X number of books that we can do. We're only going to do a couple of books. We're only looking for a couple of people. But the goal is to get out there and see who's out there. Mainly because part of Frank's ambition for Frank Miller Presents is somewhat level of mentorship, helping people work. And I see that with him, with Emma Kubert. They get together once a month and they just sit there and sketch and talk. And you see that exchange of knowledge going on there. And I think he feels beholden to the industry because ultimately he wouldn't have a position with it without the mentorship of Neil Adams to him. Neil basically rejected Frank's work 3 to 4 times, I think,
That's
before he
Neil.
finally accepted it.
Did he
But he
crumple it up and throw it out?
no, he pretty much just told him to go back to Vermont and just give up.
Yeah, that was Neil.
Kind of true. But Frank didn't do that. He kept on going back. And then I think on the 4th try, Neil says, "You're good enough for me to get your work." And then he basically offered him up to either Charlton or Gold Key of one of those 3rd or 4th level companies in a while. And
Neil
that
Neil
was
used to test you to see. Neil was more interested in your fortitude than your art at first. He wants to see
yeah,
if you had the guts to see if you could get better. And if you crumbled right away, you were done. You were done.
yeah. I see that a lot. I've seen some other executives work along that way. They let passion lead the charge, so to speak. And they will shut you down for no reason other than to see how much you're willing to fight for it. Probably why I was as tenacious as I was during my time at DC.
Sean said that he picked up Ronin 2 and he's looking forward to reading it. Yeah, man, Philip Tan is just killing it on that book too.
Yeah, yeah. It's partially killing him too because just the sheer level. Even though he's working directly from Frank's layouts, you can see the level of intricate work that goes on there. And Daniel Enriquez is the
Yeah, he's
inker.
doing great on the inks.
Yeah, he's just
Yes.
doing beautiful work. You can see his work on Frank as well on some of the variant covers. It's beautiful stuff. It's just an absolutely beautiful book.
Now, with Ronin, was it? It was a conscious choice by Frank to do a lot of splash pages, double
Oh yeah,
spreads. Was there a
yeah.
reason for that, or just because you want this epic
I'd
feel?
like to
Or
say, I'm going to say I think he thinks in landscape now more so than anything else. He's just opened up. I think it's a much more cinematic approach to the comic
right,
book, which made it very difficult because normally on a book that size you square bind it, and ultimately we made the choice just to saddle stitch it, which means staples, and
right.
we did that because you can open it up better. But it threw some people off. They didn't realize these are oversized books. They just thought they were high-priced comics, and it's much more than that.
No, they're beautiful and high quality. And again, comics the way comics used to be for guys like me. I mean,
Yeah.
when Wednesday was like Christmas every week, you know.
Oh, I get it. You know what? It's funny you say that. You talk to the retailers now, and Wednesday is not the best-selling day anymore, which
Right.
says a lot. Which says a lot. Now on the plus side, you hear people say that Saturday and Sunday is a better day, which means that you're getting casual traffic moving through the store and picking up things.
Right.
But where to point people to with the amount of product out there seems to be where some confusion is. But that idea of the quote unquote Wednesday warrior, something that we lived by for a number of years while I was at DC, it seems to have faded a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's a good and a bad of that. We used to say, because in those days also there was a point there that people only shopped on Wednesday. They didn't shop any other day of the week. So it seems like the paradigm has shifted. The real win is getting both Wednesday warriors and casual readers.
Right.
That's when we all win. But I don't think we're at that moment.
Do you think it'll be helpful with the industry to move beyond just comic shops where because we used to be able to go get comics anywhere, candy stores, blah, blah, blah. Then it became centralized through distribution like Diamond. You think we should be expanding more again, getting
Yeah, I tried that. I tried that
stores?
Walmart campaign, which I did, and it becomes about price and value and placement. There's a lot of moving pieces, and our version of the newsstand and spin rack doesn't exist anymore,
right?
Because there's not enough profitability in a low price book. So they want to put higher ticket items out. That's just because they get a better they get a better return on it, you know.
Right.
But on the other side of the coin, a $5 32-page comic, I think, is destructive to the industry. Especially if you're getting just a portion of a story. And I
Right.
don't think you could put anything out like that at a $5. That's an incomplete idea, and expect a casual person to pick it up, even if you
Especially
do.
when 8 of those pages are ads.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, 100% right. So it's like, you gotta weight what you're doing to really who you're trying to sell to. And I think a lot of listen. We crunched those numbers. The warm-up books were a losing proposition, but for me, it was more of a marketing tool and advertisement
Right.
than it was a profit center. But unfortunately, if you're driven by profit, all these different things combined. How do you do that? Well, we just put another cover on. That's the answer.
Well, you're chasing your tail too, because to
Yeah.
get the costs down on the book, you have to get high print runs. To get high
Yep.
print runs, you've got to invest quality into the book, and it's like you're
Yeah.
just chasing your tail.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mark is here. He said, even in high school, I bought a lot of comics off the Rite Aid spinner rack. Now I have to drive to the comic book store. That's true. It's true. Accessibility.
Yeah.
Charles said, hi, Dan and Phil. Len came in and asked about the mentoring the youth. Yeah, just to recap, they're doing a talent search, but it's only at conventions. If you see that Dan is going to be at a show, or Frank, read the convention rules as to how and when they're going to do the portfolio reviews, and you can go and submit. They do get flooded, so just be mindful of that, and bring your A game, guys. Bring your A game.
And yeah, what I tell everybody is this: just don't stuff an envelope full of art, because ultimately you're going to be judged by your worst piece. I tell that all the time, because all I remember is the weakest product, not the best, in a strange way. Because if you're putting somebody on a schedule, on a deadline, and they have a lot of work to do in a short period of time, and I've never seen you deliver before, my expectation is I'm going to get the worst piece rather than the best piece, because
Right.
you're going to be rushing more so than anything else. So I always tell, just show your best stuff. Sequential is what we're looking for more so than anything else. I do not want cover artists. We do not do multiple variant covers. Frank Miller Presents. So there's no reason for me to be looking for variant cover artists. I have Frank if I want a variant cover artist. He's pretty good at it. And
Yeah, I've heard.
So it's really about interior work. And the funny part is that we're looking at genre, and we're looking at different genres within Frank Miller Presents for the next wave of books. And so because of that, so that's why we're looking for different types of looks, different types of product.
Yes. Are you going to be at C2E2?
No, unfortunately, C2E2 and MegaCon both on the same day this weekend. Unfortunately, the winning place will be my granddaughter's second birthday.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Are you going to New York?
Absolutely, be in New York Comic Con. I'm actually going to be with a lot of the GalaxyCon shows. I'll be with. I just did Richmond. I've got Raleigh, Austin. I think we're doing Columbus. I'll be in Phoenix. Fan Fusion. Then there's a show.
I'll see you at Phoenix. I'll be at Phoenix.
Fabulous. Then I'll be up in Washington State. So we got a few shows. Going over there. So
anything in Texas? How they just asked?
Austin.
Now, is there somewhere they can go to see your convention schedule, or?
I think I put it on our initial release, which is on our website.
Okay. And what's the website?
It's frankmillerpresents.com.
There you go, guys. Go to frankmillerpresents.com. While you're there, go order some books, but also check out the.
I wish you could order some books on that, but you go find some books. And if you don't find it, ask for them, please. Let's get these retailers off their butts and ordering some good comics.
Yeah, listen, guys, I'm really serious about this. You guys know me. I don't push hard if I don't believe in what I'm saying. And Ancient Enemies really brings you back to comics that we were enjoyed. It was fun. It's not heavy, but it's not so light either. It's hard to explain, but it's just fun comic book writing and art, and you really should go check it out if you haven't. And then Ronin is, of course, just a beautiful book. If you ever collect the Ronin 80s, it just, and if you have daughters or kids, Pandora might be great for them, and to introduce them into comics, to sit and read with them and introduce them into comics. So that's a good thing to check out. So check them out. Got to get back to the old ways. This convention for those limited stuff. Need to. Well, you got to remember too. They're right now they're focused on small titles. They're probably because it's Frank Miller Presents with Dan Didio. They're probably getting thousands of people crawling up their butt.
You would not
Uh,
believe. I actually had a celebrity call today asking about it, which was
oh,
rather,
really?
yeah, yeah, really intriguing. I have to say, I have to say, it was really
Well, I
intriguing.
remember when you first made the announcement, everybody was like, "Are you accepting submissions? Are you accepting submissions?" It was like you were flooded.
Yeah, I mean, and it's an that's a good question because I did get that, and the real and we have to create a point of difference. My point of difference is Frank Miller. Okay, so the reality is what we're trying to do is Frank has a lot of ideas that he's been pushing and thinking about, and what we're taking is we're getting these to an early stage of development, and then ultimately bringing teams in to help execute, moving them forward. Pandora's the perfect example of that. Frank will always have a book. I will always have a book, but other things that we create, we're really looking to hand down and move it to other creative teams. And that's sort of the game plan. And we want to see if that develops because, quite honestly, there's a lot of good companies out there. We create our own product. I mean, if you look at Image or IDW or basically every other company, they're out there doing create our own products with creators.
Right.
So we have to create a point of difference, and the point of difference is us. That's where we start. So we'll work
Well, I
from
mean,
there.
this is your passion play anyway, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's not
yeah,
like you couldn't go get work with big companies. You're
yeah,
doing this because this is what you want to do.
yeah. And Frank said this, I'll repeat it because I believe it. We're not here to compete. To be honest with you, the people we're competing with is ourselves about what we're creating. We're
Right.
not there. We're not. We've never used the word market share in a conversation. We're not looking at saying how many books can we put out on a shelf. We're kind of just doing the books we're doing right now, and the reality, the company's four people. It's four of us doing it, and we hire out people to help out on the edges. But right now I'm doing soup to nuts. I'm doing everything from writing solicitation to putting out promotional copy to getting my own book made to getting into pre-press, ordering, sitting with the printer, sitting with the distributor, and then starting it all over again.
Yeah, I mean, look, just managing everything alone is enough, but when you're also writing and you're art directing and it's a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
But that's a good segue though, because we have your new book that is
yes,
launching April 8th, 11th. I mean, it
yeah,
is Hide or Seek, the Superpower Protection Program, and we touched on it the last time you were on, but tell us about it and
yeah.
what got you to do this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, it's an idea that I've had for quite some time, even with Ancient Enemies. Ancient Enemies, if you want the truth, has its roots in my idea for an ultimate DCU that I've never implemented, but I found a way to take the conceits
Oh,
and move them
cool.
into a story I wanted to tell. With Hard to Seek, it's also is an idea that I had for quite a while. I've always loved the idea of superpowers living among us, but being able to live a normal life around it. Okay,
Right.
and ultimately, you meet this young boy at the start who's rather disenchanted with his father. His father's always traveling and things like that. He never really had much time for him, but he remembers the good times he did have. Then ultimately, what happens? Um, they live in a world of superheroes, and the greatest of the heroes dies, gets killed. And while everybody's mourning the death of that, it didn't affect him much because he never cared much for superheroes anyway, until basically you find out that that hero was his father. And because of that, him and his mother are being thrown into a protection program because of the fear of who is going to come hunt them down. And then ultimately they get put into a town that's not quite what it seems. Neither are the people. And you find out who else has been put into that town and what the reasons are. And then the story starts to develop out from there. But I'm having a blast with it. Um, I got the art done by Kenneth Rockford. He actually helped me
Yeah, I
develop
love
the
his work.
project, visually develop the project as part of a pitch we did for Netflix. The pitch itself came apart. We didn't get it picked up there. So I love the idea so much. I actually was able to bring it to a book publisher, and they loved it too, and they bought it. And here we are today. But I'm having a blast with it. It's a whole nother skill set, and for me, being able to tell a story just in words is a challenge after living with words and
Well,
pictures for
because
so
you have
long.
to describe the background, you have to paint the picture for everybody as opposed to the art doing it for you.
Yeah, yeah. I actually got some help just getting the story laid out because I've never worked in prose before. So just I had my outline, I had my big story. Then we figured out how to pace it out chapter wise. Then I went in and then we worked on it from there. And I worked on it from there, and it was pretty. It was a lot of fun, but a lot of work. Um, but extraordinarily rewarding at the end to have this book so close to being out. Again, and we've been doing pretty good. I mean, we're out there right now. They're accepting pre-orders on both Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And I'm hoping that when the book comes out, it makes a lot of success because, we definitely have a second piece of the story to tell, and I have more stories with it. But I'm loving it. I love the characters. It's a wonderful mix of characters, and I liked. My perspective is I tell the story from the lead's perspective. It's boy Nick Pappas, who has to take on a new identity, Theo Alexander, and it really you're right there with them, discovering the town and the people with every step of the way. So you're learning as he learning, and it was a fun way to tell the story because I almost felt like I was on that same journey with them, and you get caught up in it, and it moves very quickly, and but I had a blast. I'm not much one for long extended prose. I love moving you through the action and moving through the people and seeing things as it develops, and it's just been a blast to work on, and I love creating the world where the heroes and the villains of the world are in perfect balance. And whenever that balance is upset, something happens to the world itself. And this kid's at the center of all this insanity, which is kind of fun.
And what would you say is the age group that would best,
This is a young adult book. It's younger. It's probably 12 to 15. I would say that's probably the easiest way to do it. I mean, I worked in Saturday morning TV, so that's my sensibility in a strange thing. That's where I really honed a lot of my storytelling for cartoons on Saturday morning. And I know the tone and I know sensibility. It's more Fox than anything else, but during those days in the '90s, but it is something that I feel it is done for kids to enjoy and adults to enjoy too.
Yeah, I'm going to pre-order the book because I think my 11-year-old would be perfect for her because
yeah. There's a lot of fun stuff in this, and it gets a little intense, but I love exploring the relationships, especially between the son and mother, because after the father dies, he starts to realize how much the parents were keeping from him, and the loneliness that he feels because of that after having so much trust for his mother and belief in his mother because his father wasn't there, and then to find out that she's not really been truthful to him really sets him apart and forces him to figure out his own way.
I think what's lost a lot in stories today is the hero's journey.
Yeah.
They don't know how to write it anymore. I just don't think they know how to write a hero's journey. They either have to destroy the hero, make them this complete mess that somebody else builds back up again, which to me that's not a hero.
Oh no.
Or they automatically could do everything right, and they miss the mark all the time, and that's why I look forward to stuff that you're writing.
Yeah. No, it's this. Once you're with Theo in the town of Crucible, you start to realize he really is on his own. He has friends around him, doesn't know whether to trust him or not. And then as things slowly develop and reveal, he realizes that he's the one who's going to be responsible for his own life, and has to take charge, right and wrong. Makes a lot of bad decisions on the way, but it's a learning. It's all about learning everything. Look, even myself, I'm in my 60s right now, and doing what I'm doing with Frank Miller Presents, it's still learning. Still challenging yourself. It's not going backwards. It's not anything. I'm doing jobs that I used to have staff for that I'm doing myself. Right. And I actually called a couple of guys from DC and thanked them. I didn't realize how miserable I was making them.
Like, I don't sleep anymore. Thank you for what you did.
No, but it's a blast. But I had a blast with the book. Really proud of it. It's something that, like I said, I finished it around the middle of last year. So I've been waiting for this moment. You know what I mean? It's literally it's funny because the book process is much slower than the comic process. I could get a comic started and out the door in 6 months. Here, it's a good year plus turnaround when you're working on a novel. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, now, do you have any plans to follow up with this story or write a new story in prose, or is this all you're doing for
It's
prose
I
for now?
actually with my publisher, Bermuda Press, I have a 2 book deal, and they asked me about the sequel, and people have asked me about it. It's weird for me to write a sequel before I see how the first one does, you know, just because
But do you have something marinating in your head,
yeah,
or?
oh, the story is already broken down. The second one is already broken down, and of course, like anything, because of just my background, I had a trilogy figured out. I know 1, 2, and 3 just to know how this whole thing would work because I knew my characters and who was coming in and coming out. And the second one, there's a lot more twists and turns. But once you get comfortable, but I want to see what resonates first, or does it resonate? But I also have
Right.
another book concept that we're working on. I have a couple of comic ideas that I'm saving for with Frank Miller Presents. So it's good to have these outlets for the creativity. It's just that those deadlines start to step on each other every once in a while. So I got to keep everybody separate for the time being. You know.
How maddening is it for you though? Like, I have all these ideas in my head and things, scripts, and that I want to write and this and that, and it's just, but the budget, the time,
Yeah.
it's like you want to get these stories out there, but obviously they're gonna have to take their course based on budget and time, etc. Do you ever get frustrated with that? Like, I got so many
I
ideas I want to get out.
Yeah, I did, and what I do is I've got notes and boards all around me, so you can't see the lunacy that exists in this room, but it's here. But the reality is, and this is one thing I learned since leaving DC, because DC I was able to do that. You're able to shout 10 different things at 10 different places and seeing people run around and trying to execute them with different teams and all that. And it's easier because DC I was at the early stages of development. Then it would be handed off to the team with the editor, and then the next time I see it is when it lands on my desk complete, and I have to guess whether or not it's close to what I thought it was or completely off the rail. Um, Here, I realize something important. I've got to take the time, energy, and focus. And I say that with all respect to everybody who tries to multitask. I need, especially with Ancient Enemies, I took my eyes off the ball a little bit, and I was a little unhappy with a couple of things that occurred in the second issue. And I realized I have to dedicate myself completely to these books until they're completed to make sure they see where they're supposed to be. And you know what? And the truth is now I have no one to blame but myself. No. And you know what? And listen, I took a lot of blame for a lot of other people, but I'm saying this right now. If the book doesn't work, there's no one to blame but yourself. If the art's not there, the color's not there, the story's not there, you have every step of the way, every say along the way. So it has to be true to what you want it to be. And honestly, I'm starting to realize I take that seriously because we're at that point right now where this could be the shot. This could be the last shot or the next shot or whatever. But the reality is, if this doesn't work, then it's hard to proceed on. So I want to make sure that I do everything that I can. And to be honest with you, again, sales have been soft, but quite honestly, that's redoubled my efforts. For what I'm doing because.
I just think it's the climate. A lot of it's the climate right now,
Yeah,
bro.
you know what? I'm on that mindset. I'm not going to let anything deter for what I want to do. There's not anything that's going to slow me down, and my goal is to see this through to completion in the way I want the story to be told. And honestly, when number three landed on my desk, I got my copies and I went through it. I was extraordinarily happy with it. Really happy with it. And I haven't felt that good about something in quite a while. And that sense of accomplishment is a better motivator than any sales number you get, and that's what drives me.
Speaking candidly too, and I hope this doesn't come out the wrong way, guys like me and other people that are watching that are doing this on the side of their day job that they hate,
Yeah.
um, it's nice to see you after, working in the big industry part of the industry, relating to us more
Yeah.
in this respect, and the appreciation you have for it and the acknowledgments you're giving, because we're doing this every day while we do our day jobs too and struggling. And it can be inspirational to hear, someone like you with your resume acknowledging those aspects that we struggle with, and that we go through.
Listen, I came from where you are. Those are my roots.
Right.
When I was working in TV, I was, I was constantly submitting ideas. I remember when the black and white boom of comics in the 80s, and I was submitting to all these little companies, all these stories, and I got one or two things published along the way. And I consider that a big win. But the reality was, I still have probably a file this thick of rejection letters from all
Right.
those companies. My favorite is when the people that rejected me worked for me at DC, and I always found a way to show them their letter. You know what I mean? I always wanted to put that under their nose.
I gotta say that alone is a good motivation for people. Not to be spiteful, or vengeful, but
No,
you love to prove people that they were wrong for not betting on this
oh
horse.
no. Paul wrote me this extraordinarily obnoxious rejection letter that I held on with all life, and ultimately, when I was in my position, I actually published it in the back of the books just to show everybody.
But that's good. I mean, Charles even says he agrees it's inspirational to hear the struggle is there, and that but you persevere and keep going. Sean Chen is here. What's up, Sean?
Sure, check. Hey,
Um,
man.
Sean's a great guy. He's funny as hell too. Asked Dan about how he made Harley Quinn a household name, and if he can do the same with. That's my book, Tragedy.
Oh,
Look at you. See, I've never bothered Dan with my book, and I'm not going to. He's got his
yeah,
own crap going
yeah.
on.
First of all, I didn't make Harley Quinn a household name. Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Conner made it a household name. Okay,
Mm.
what happened was it's true. This is I'm going to tell the story. So the story is this: I was at a retailer conference in Florida, talking to the retailers, and we were at the end of the conference. Jimmy lives in Florida, and he was coming to meet. We were going to go out to eat after the conference. So as I'm chatting with one of the retailers, I'm talking about how I wish DC had a Deathstroke, a Deadpool like character. Wanted a Deadpool character. It was hot, very hot at the time. Wanted a character like that. And we had tried Lobo and Ambush Bug, but they weren't Deadpool. Not in the same way that was. And the retailer, to his credit, said, "What about Harley Quinn?" Now, I'm going to admit something that most people might not believe, but I did not watch the Batman the animated series by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini. I did not watch it, primarily because, let me explain myself, I was working at ABC and that was my competition, and I didn't want to do it because it pissed me off because it was beating my ass every week on Saturday morning. So I would not watch that show. Okay, let me get that out of the way. So I was not familiar with Harley Quinn on that show. And when I joined DC, the Harley Quinn book that we had at the time was a rather dour book. It was very dark and not funny. So when they recommended Harley Quinn to me as the replacement, as DC version of Deadpool, I was a little taken aback. And I turned to Jimmy Palmiotti. I said, "How much do you know about this character?" And Jimmy says, "I know enough." And Jimmy had written some Deadpool for Marvel. So I said, "You think you could do a Deadpool with Harley Quinn?" He goes, "Let me call Amanda. Let's see what we could come back with." And that was where we went.
Nice.
And that's how they sort of made Harley Quinn their own, and a very successful run of that character at DC while I was there.
By the way, that was very nice of you, Sean. Thank you.
Now I have to know what Tragedy is. Now I got to find out.
I'll send you the PDFs just for fun to read them.
Absolutely, please do. I'd love to see it.
Question.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but Sean's a good guy. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
But see that stories like that. That's why I like talking with you, because again, just when you talk about your struggles and stuff, you're honest. You're one of us. It's there's a lot of, I hate to say this, but there's a lot of elitism that's going on now with the movies. The taking from a lot of, there's an elevation and a distance now between certain fans and certain artists, and
Yeah. No,
you're not there. You're keeping.
No, listen. I love collaboration. To tell you the truth, if I was at DC during the pandemic, I would have probably been fired anyway for going to people's houses to talk to them because I couldn't handle it just for me by myself.
Well, I told you before the show, you and Kevin Eastman, to me, are the most down to earth. Oh, and Billy Tucci are the most down to earth comic people to talk to and just shoot the breeze with. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's I've been talking comics my whole life, so it's kind of fun.
And you're still married.
Yeah. Yes, I am.
She's a keeper.
My wife to work now. Somebody's got to do some work around here.
So you've got Hide and Seek. Again, we're going to just show it, which is the hardcover. If you want to show the book you have there.
There we go.
Again, books like these to me are important, and the reason why I say that is as a father of a daughter who was a challenge to get her to want to read. Comics started getting her to want to read, but
Yeah,
to really up her game, we want to get into prose books. So books like this are great to sit down, read with your kids, get them interested in the fantasy of the picture in your mind, not the picture on the page. And that's why I say a book like this, you should really pick it up for you, for your kids, for family night. I mean, I was just reading The Hobbit to my kids the other night,
yeah,
last week.
yeah.
You know,
And this, like I said, this is fun. This is all ages. It's hard to. It's funny when you talk about comics. When we talk about comics, I grew up on the Marvel of the '70s stuff, and there was a maturity. I used to call it a faux maturity. It's like you felt like you were older reading it. You know what I mean? Even though you weren't. It was being played to a certain audience. That's the type of voice that I love to bring to the books. You want the kids to feel a little bit older when they read it, but you don't want to be there shoveling stuff at them that
isn't appropriate.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. And I'm all about adventure and entertainment. I say that about our comics. I say about everything. It's like I have no other point of view other than to entertain. As a matter of fact, I love covering all sides of the story because it makes for great drama and conflict, which is what comics and storytelling should be about. You should have conflict in your stories. You need competing and changing points of view, and uh, you have to let the audience pick out what they feel is right or wrong. I think that's the way. It's the best way to engage somebody in what you do.
And I think that's where they failed.
Yeah,
When you know what the writer feels is right or wrong, when you know what the writer feels on a subject, I think they failed you.
yeah,
Present a situation like Neil back in the day, and with the Speedy and the drugs and everything. Yeah, you can use the backdrop of society as the story, but at the end of the day, the writer should let me decide what my thoughts are on the
yeah.
characters and what's going on. And that's why, again, I think why I like Ancient Enemies, because it's back to classic writing where you're just entertaining. You're getting a nice story out there, and I get to just sit back and delve into it and enjoy it. Don't bring the outside world here. I'm trying to get away from there.
Oh no, I mean that's why I have a blast. Um, because when I bring the outside world, it's from the lens of Ancient Enemies now, so it becomes a whole different board game. It becomes a whole different board game. And you take the trappings of the real world, and then you put it in the fantasy setting, and
Right.
then you get a chance to play with it a little more. And I think my biggest joke I have going on right now is the greater good is this corporation, um, and they're trying to present their sense of values on people, and I'm like, and the line in the story is that corporations don't have values, they have profits. And so if it makes sense profit wise, sure, they're going to believe it, but if not, where do you go? And so it forces
But
people to
again, the
think
way you
things.
write it though is you're not beating the reader over the head
No.
saying you have to be anti-corporate or
Oh no.
anti-capitalism
That's
or
I
anti.
just to say the truth, I'm just having fun. I have a hit squad called the Human Resources Department just
Yeah,
because
I
I think
know.
it's funny.
And that's my point. It's not a preachy book. You're just putting out situations, and that's what I think comics are sorely missing
Yeah.
right now,
You,
which I
you
think is
want you want to
great.
get a little laugh out of things. Probably one of my favorite writers is Steve Gerber. And I've always loved Steve Gerber's point of view and just the quirkiness of the personalities and the opinions. But it's not preachy, and that's what's fun. It's just you're into this really crazy world, and he was one of the guys that I had a chance to work with up till he passed, and I'm glad I did because I found him extraordinarily refreshing and just still passionate even as his health was fading. So I mean,
Yeah.
when you work with guys like him, I mean, you ask me before mentors. I mean, comic book mentor, probably Len Wein. Probably Len Wein. I knew Len for a long time. He worked with me in animation, and I remember at ABC I hired him on a show. Not because I wanted him to be the writer of the show, but because I wanted to pick his brains on comics. And we'd have a 2-minute writer meeting about the show, and then I'd ask him all things about what happened on Crisis on Infinite
That's
Earths and all
great.
the plans.
That's great. That's great. What's the future of Frank Miller Presents? Like, can you tell us, is Sin City coming, and
Oh
what's
yeah,
coming?
yeah. As a matter of fact, we're out there right now. I'm looking at a lot of things, but the Sin City's the next big one. The issue is right now is that financing is always tight, so we can only get so far ahead of ourselves because we're only moving a couple of books at a time. But Sin City's the big push. Once Frank's got all the layouts done for Ronin, He has the Sin City Western planned. He's already started doing designs on that. And my hope is to have it out. I was hoping for the summer. September's probably more realistic, but he's 100% on board on that one. He's super excited by it, which is great. And I'm actually flying to see him tomorrow. We're sitting down. We've got about 6 proposals. We're trying to figure out what's the best 3 of the 6 as what would be the books to circle around Sin City. We're also waiting on the we're also waiting on the Mila Manera Sin City that we're working on right now. Frank wrote it. Mila Manera is drawing it. But I'll say it here. We're thinking about doing that as a Kickstarter because we feel that might have the best way, the best exposure for that project probably is in a Kickstarter. It might be to make the most sense going ahead there. So
it's a good supplemental system to distribution.
Yeah. It's just I think for what Monera is and what it stands for, I think the Kickstarter market works. I've been watching Boom with their Kickstarters with Berserker. I think that's them. And I saw that they were doing Power Rangers on Kickstarter, which surprised me. But I think that might be one there. But I still what I don't like about Kickstarter is you can make the money, but there's so few people purchasing compared to getting the books out there. So you can make this big, hundreds of thousands of dollars and sell to 1,200 people. And I'm like, I don't. It's a money win, not a readership win. And I'm looking for readership wins, you know?
I'm glad you said that because I talk about that with people all the time. I'm like, you can get that quick buck, but you're not growing a fan base.
No. As
and
a matter of fact,
ultimately, longevity is grow the fan base because the people that read the books are going to keep coming back because eventually all these variant covers and everything are going to flop. The bubble's going to burst, and you can't keep milking them with variant covers. But the readers are going to stay.
Yeah. I mean that's the same thing. I think you're shrinking the fan base with Kickstarter. You're getting your money, and that was always my biggest fear. I said this somewhere, and I'll say it again. My fear is 1,000 people buying a book for $1,000 each, and that's your audience, you know. And and that's sort of where we're going. We keep on shrinking and shrinking and shrinking down to this core group that's just willing to pay more for it, but you're shutting out the wide potential audience at the same time.
And here's the other thing. All these Kickstarter backers, a lot of them are collectors for covers, or they're sitting on a pile of indie books that they haven't gotten to yet. So they haven't even read your issue yet.
Yeah.
You know?
I want my book speed up and read. I want to see that cover. I want to see a book with the cover full enough because I read it so many times. They bent it backwards. That's the book I want. You know?
I agree. I agree. You know? Man, I agree. Absolutely. Dom was asking, any tips for making a portfolio stand out for the FMP review? Yeah, don't suck. No, okay.
Not really. I mean, it's 4 to 6 pages of sequential art, some good action figures. I want to see forced perspectives. I don't want to see something that looks like I could have traced a photo. I kind of don't want to see a house style anymore ever again. And you'd be surprised. Frank is extraordinarily interested in eclectic looks and styles. So this is not one size fits all. There is no perfect answer. It's just about how the art connects with the people reviewing it.
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, and obviously you have way more than me, just if you can look at the sequential pages without dialogue and kind of get a gist of what the story's saying, that's a good start. The other thing is be able to draw different faces, ages, architecture, show diversity in what you can draw, and movement, not stiff pose. They don't want poses. Poses are pinups. They don't want pinups in sequential art.
Yeah, it was interesting to me. What I found to be lacking in a lot of artists, and this is just raw, it means that they're not being trained, is size and perspective. You know, putting the characters in a scene and not realizing the actual size of the characters as in comparison to each other.
The horizon line.
Yeah, exactly.
Using the horizon line.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So that's been intriguing because that was one of those things. What was really intriguing, you go to some places where there's a large pool of talent and they all seem to have the same practice script. So you see the same 4 to 6 pages on a half dozen guys. And
Oh
it's an
wow.
interesting when you do that that immediate comparison starts to come out, because now I have something to compare it against, and
Right.
it goes so quickly. You know what I've been telling people? This is going to sound really weird, but it's a bugaboo. You know when you have something that really bugs you? Um, if you're lifting from other books, or you're finding something or script you're drawing from, make sure it's a good one. Um, and I mean this with all sincerity. I have turned down artists because the storytelling was terrible, but the storytelling was derived from what the script they used. It was called for in the script. And
Right.
I could not get past seeing the bad story. So if you're going to lift something you enjoy, a story you like, and something that's fun to draw. Because ultimately, if you just get a script from some hack just to get it, just so you can put some pages together, um, you're going to hurt yourself. I'd rather you write the script. I have more belief in someone if they write the script themselves and tell the story themselves than I do from somebody taking somebody's poor script and trying to translate it into art for me to review. Because I'm going to be looking at the bad storytelling and think it's the artist's fault and not the writer's.
Wow, that's as honest as you get. And I've never heard anybody, say that. That's good tip. That's a great tip.
I,
And you
I,
heard it here.
I actually got visibly angry at an artist, and I couldn't control myself because he was giving me this story that was lifted from some DC's thing, and it was awful, awful. It made no sense, and it looked like the artist was leaving pages out. That's how badly constructed the
Oh
story was.
wow.
The
Wow.
scenes were jumping from all over the place, and I thought he was just cutting and pasting stuff together. And he said, "No, these are the pages." And I couldn't. I told him I can't look at it. I couldn't look at it
But
anymore.
the
I
other
just
part of that is if you're an artist and you know how to storytell properly, you're gonna notice those flaws and not want to do that script. That's the
and
point.
I said that to him too. I said, if you saw this character making, because the characters were inconsistent from panel to panel in their actions and behaviors, so it
Right.
looks like he didn't know how to track the emotional journey of a character in a sequential story. And meanwhile, it was the direction from the script.
Hey Larry. Larry's here, Larry Stroman. I still like Dan's OMAC.
Thanks, Larry. I appreciate that very much. I still like it too. Actually, what's fun? I saw Keith Giffen. I ran into Keith Giffen in Richmond, Virginia. And he came by, he stopped by to visit, stopped by, came over to me, Jeff Lemire, Dan Jurgens. We're all hanging. But, we talk about OMAC all the time. That was still one of the most fun I ever had working in comics during that
I
day. It
remember
was,
you saying that the last time you were on.
yeah,
Yeah. Larry had mentioned to me a couple of times that he loves
yeah.
that run. So very cool. Um, Hide or Seek, guys. April 11th. I'm going to show you. It's in Target. It's in on Amazon. It's Barnes and Noble. You said.
Yeah, Barnes and Noble. Yeah, yeah. Barnes and Noble's changing the way they work right now. So right now we're on Barnes and Noble online. They got new management, and they're changing how they do books these days. It's rather intriguing, but I wish them well. I'd love to see Barnes and Noble successful. I love bookstores, So the
Yeah,
fact
I hated when Borders went out. I loved
oh,
Borders.
me too. Me too. My wife's from Puerto Rico. There was a huge Borders in San Juan, and that store was so popular, and they had to close it just because the company went out of business. And
Yeah, it was a
I miss
shame.
I love bookstores. I love comic shops. I love browsing, and
Do you
that's another
smell
reason.
them? Do you love to smell them? I do.
That
My
was
wife thinks I'm nuts. I just go like this and smell them.
Do you know that was the logic behind our ash can we did? We did it on newsprint purposely, and when you open the box, it smelled like old comics.
I love
And
that.
we did that on purpose because the thought was, and this, right or wrong, we wanted the tactile experience of a comic. We did the ash can because we wanted the senses to kick in. It feels like a comic, it smells like a comic, so it must
Sure.
really be a comic. That was the logic we had there.
Well, there is a subconscious element to that too, to be
Oh yeah.
honest with you. But the funny thing is, my next question, you're talking about tactile, but is there an ebook availability for
Yes,
your
there is.
prose
There
books?
is an ebook. It's funny. There is an ebook for Hide or Seek. We do not have. We did not do any digital comic stuff. Believe it or not, with Frank Miller Presents. just doing physical at the moment. If we do digital, we're going to do the collections. It makes more sense, than
Sure.
somebody buying periodicals in digital form. I'd rather, if somebody wants to really read digitally, then they should get the whole book, the whole experience, and we'll put the books on digitally. But yes, Hide or Seek is digital, and you can buy it on either Barnes and Noble or on Amazon.
And just like I said, it's at Target too, because that's what I popped up there.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So they got you in Target too. Who knows where else they got you. But guys, it's real simple. All you have to do is Google Dan Didio books and it pops up right away. I mean, in seconds. And you'll get that, and you'll get Ancient Enemies and everything that Dan has done for DC and other companies. So just Google it if you need to. But again, it's at Target, it's at Barnes and Noble, it's on Amazon. You can't miss it. It's April 11th, so you got 2 weeks. It's coming out. I'm looking forward to it. You can pre-order it now.
It's the book business is so weird. I mean, it's sort of like the comic business. The pre-orders, they weight them so heavily nowadays that it affects the actual ordering of the book. So we're constant. That's why we're out there. And I'm like, there really is this ongoing, continuous buying period, the constant information going out there. But for me, it's always about the release date. April 11th is the release date, but everybody's out there ordering ahead of time, and and my goal is to get the book in many hands as possible.
People are getting tax returns right now. It's the best time to put out a book. They're gonna have money just burning in their pocket. Listen, I appreciate you coming on. It's a blast having you on and talking with you. I'm really rooting for you to succeed. You're a fan like the rest of us, and we need this. I don't know if people understand this. We need this. We need what you want to bring back to the comics world. We need it.
Yeah, I'm going to leave on a little bit of a, I don't know if it's a down note, but it's sobering. So I'm at the conventions, right? I'm doing the conventions, and I'm hearing a lot of the same thing from a lot of fans, and this is what I find disheartening. A lot of fans feel like they've lost the connection to the books that they grew up and loved, and because of that, it's not that they drop one or two titles. It's not even that they drop the entire line comics. I'm hearing about fans selling off their collections because they just need that total separation, and they want the room back because they've lost whatever they felt for the comic
business.
There's
a sense of betrayal.
Yeah.
They stuck it in when Marvel was going to go bankrupt 15 times. Us old readers, we kept comics going all these years, and then they just dropped us.
And this is what I'm going to say is that if you're feeling that way, this is when you start to look around and you go to the talent that you love and the genres that you love, because ultimately, when I was younger, and I was in this buying in the 70s, I bought every Atlas comic because I wanted to hope that there was another company out there. I went and bought a bunch of the black and white comics because I thought in the 80s that the black and white booms were interesting. Then you had all these new companies popping up, Comico, First, Now, all these things popping up, really giving opportunities for people to try different things. And you got to remember that it's the medium that you love, not just about a character or two, but it is a medium and the types of storytelling. So if there's books that you enjoy, then don't give up if those books aren't the best things for you anymore. Go find something else. It's out there.
Right.
That's why we're creating these books, but we're only 3. We're not the sole answer. We're just a piece of the puzzle. But there's a lot of good stuff out there being created by a lot of great talent that share the same love of comics that we all do, or else we wouldn't be working in this business. What we're doing is not to make movies or TV. We're making comic books. That's all I want to do. That's all I really care about. I did movies and I did TV, but I love comics, and and hopefully you'll see that love in these books and hopefully in other books out there. But I'm telling people, don't give up on the business. Go find. This is the fun part. We're huntsmen. We should go out there and hunt and find the best comics that fit our needs. So that's not hunt and search anymore. Don't get too lazy and get out there and buy.
I agree. I mean, two things. One, when Claremont was taken off, left Marvel after the X-Men, he did Sovereign 7 for DC. Nobody knew these characters. They were brand new. Yep. That's one of my favorite series of all time. I love that book. And when you talk to people about the success of manga right now, they say because of the character development and because they're pushing the boundaries of storytelling. You go now, and there are Western American comics doing that.
Yeah.
but you have to find them. But it requires trust. It may not have that big name attached to it, guys, but you might be missing out on some indie books that are amazing.
Yeah.
Or you may say, "Oh, Dan, he sells a lot of books. He's Dan." No, you know what? It doesn't matter how many books he sells. Go get it because you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, we're out there hand selling right now because I really want to get back. We're taking a very grassroots approach to Frank Miller Presents and everything that I'm doing. And the reason why we're going out there is because we know that the stores themselves aren't carrying a lot of copies, so we got to get out there and show people what we're creating and talk about it and get a chance to see them. And the good news is, like I said, I heard about people quitting the business, but I saw a lot of people really enjoy picking up comics from us. So there's a plus and a minus. We just got to always stay focused on the positive and really try to push it and just don't take things for granted. That's the main thing, you know?
And that's the thing when you're the industry is kind of hurting right now, it's all the more reason to go explore, like you said, hunt,
Yeah.
and you might
Have
find that
fun.
new passion that you love that you're excited to go get every time it comes out on the rack.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
hindsight's also a bitch because for all you know, a book can, if you're a collector, how many books did you not think would be big at the time that are now that you wish you kick yourself for not getting? You never know. Go get the book.
hey, I got complete runs of Tomb of Dracula and Werewolf by Night.
Nice,
Who
Stone
knew?
Cold. Nice. Uh, but that's the thing too, and that's just the added bonus. Obviously, you buy them to read them and love them, but when they do become something iconic and legendary, it's even nicer to just have bragging rights that I have the original first printings.
It's funny you say that. I remember when I was younger, it was like people wearing comic book, paraphernalia, shirts or hats. That was like a secret handshake.
Right.
Like listen, everybody used to wear Superman, Batman. I get it. But if somebody had like a Green Lantern on, that was like the secret handshake. Like, we're in the same club, buddy. Then all of a sudden, Green Lantern became popular. Then it's like a Hawkman symbol. Yeah, Hawkman.
And then now it's the 80s boom that everybody's wearing Thundercats shirts and everything. But
Yeah.
well, when we were growing up, it was a taboo. It wasn't mainstream to like comics. You were a
No.
nerd and a loser. Now it's like the coolest thing.
Oh no, I bought that Howard the Duck shirt when it came out, but I never wore it.
I didn't hate that movie. I'm just saying I didn't hate it. I don't know why. It was stupid. It was
awful.
it was Howard the Duck. I wasn't expecting Shawshank Redemption. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't expecting a guy in a suit either, duck suit.
Yeah. I know, but that's what you had back
from
then.
that Lucas guy.
That's what you had back then. He was into practical effects, so I mean, we looked at Jabba the Hutt. It was just three guys inside this big thing.
Yeah, no kidding. I know. But boy, oh boy. Yeah. I just remember going to the opening, thinking it was going to be a big movie, and I was the only one in the theater.
Yeah. Well, hey, how many of us went to see Leah Thompson? So
Yeah.
But it's no Dolph Lundgren Punisher, right?
No, I didn't see that. Thank God.
But anyway, look, safe travels tomorrow when you go see Frank, and
Sure will.
I'm wishing you the best of success, rooting for you, supporting. Anytime you want to come on and promote, please do. Anything I can do to help spread the word,
I
just let me know.
I appreciate the time. Thanks for talking about the book. Super excited by it right now. As you can imagine, this is like, it's funny. I always wanted to be a writer, but I never wanted to write.
I want to dictate to somebody who writes, right?
Yeah, but I said, thank God for the pandemic. I don't know what to say. I was locked in a house and I started getting stuff done, and it sort of readjusted a lot of my thinking, and it really made me double and triple down on what I really wanted to do, and at least give it a shot. So I'm hoping that people find it, like it, and because really proud of how it all turned out. So I feel good about it.
Well, before you go, I'm going to give you a few minutes. Go ahead and give the elevator pitch on what Hide or Seek is, and on Ancient Enemies and everything else that FMP is doing. Just throw it out there why we want to buy these books.
Okay, so Hide or Seek really it's about a young boy's journey, who basically his father is killed, and he was a superhero, and the boy didn't know that. But when the father is murdered, he and his mother are thrown into witness protection, because ultimately there's the fear that all of his father's enemies would come and hunt them down and kill them as well. So him and his mother get thrown into a town, That's not exactly what it seems to be. And all I'm going to say is that one of my favorite television shows of all time is The Prisoner, um, and it's influenced a lot of things that I've done. And so when this boy hits this town, it looks idyllic. It looks like the perfect place where he can blend in and be safe. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. How about that? And then for Ancient Enemies, um, it started as a concept of really exploring institutionalized hatred about why people just hate and fight in war, and it's passed on from generation to generation. And the fight starts in outer space, where two races have basically pushed themselves to the brink of extinction. That they decide to put one champion against each other for the ultimate winner, because they can't stop fighting, they can't stop hating. And then what happens is both sides cheat. They crash on Earth. 10 million people on Earth are killed, but the Earth is reborn. The United States is reborn, in some ways better, because the alien technology has elevated society, but at the same time, it's changed society. And then when these two combatants start to rise, the world starts to choose sides around it, and we start to see our own class war, picking sides and taking on the fight of these two alien races. And in the middle are a series of heroes that have a lot of ambiguous choices to make. Not always right, not always wrong, but they all believe they're doing what they believe is best for mankind, even if it doesn't seem that way at the moment. So a lot of fun twists and turns along the way. I'm enjoying this immensely. And I hope people pick these books up and take a chance to read it. There's a lot of love in what's going on here, and I'm hoping you guys enjoy what you read. But that's it. That's my elevator pitch.
Awesome. Yeah, man. I mean, by the way, Alex Sarabia, who one of the artists I represent, he said, "Hey, Dan, I couldn't meet you in person. Greetings from Mexico."
I'm sorry I missed you there. It was a great show. Everybody was fabulous and so gracious. And honestly, I'll be honest, I saw a lot of really good talent down there. There's a couple of guys that if I was still at DC, they'd be working right this minute. That's how good they were. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, again, it's inspirational to hear you talk about what you're going through with publishing right now, and just to keep going. Guys, please support. Go check out Ancient Enemies. Go check out everything FMP is doing. Check out Hide or Seek. You could pre-order it now or go buy it on April 11th. It's in a lot of different retailers. You can Google it. It'll be a great way to spend time with your kids, get them to read, and enjoy a story that you may like too.
Yeah. Both these books, there's a little cursing in Ancient Enemies, but that's okay. Kids curse. I don't know if anybody knows that or not.
My kids hear me and they're like, "Daddy, you cursed." Yeah. They're mad at me.
We have to really be realistic about what a 12-year-old really knows these days.
I know, right? Yeah, I don't worry about that. It's language.
Excellent.
So, Dan, thanks so much. Safe travels tomorrow. I appreciate your time, and
thanks,
anytime you want back on.
Always a pleasure to talk to you, and thanks for having me on. Really, thanks for everything.
Have a great night.
You too now. Thanks now. Bye now.
So there's Dan Didio. I love having him on. Seriously, him and Kevin Eastman are like, no disrespect, but they're so much fun to talk to. My favorites to talk with. I really enjoy Ancient Enemies. I really do. It made me feel like comics of the old. So go check it out. Go check out Hide or Seek. Coming April 11th. You can pre-order right now in a bunch of different retailers. Target, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, etc. Go support. If you are one of those people complaining about comics in the world of entertainment right now, pop culture, then you're part of the problem unless you go support the people that are trying to change by giving you good entertainment and good stories. Don't be part of the problem, be part of the solution. Go support these people. All right? All right. Anyway, I'm going to leave you with what I always leave you with. Be legendary and have fun storming the castle.